At the dinner table she laughed and said, "If you can't handle me talking to my ex, then maybe you should leave." So that very night I walked out, filed for divorce, and watched her entire world collapse without me. I am 31, and for nearly 4 years I was in a relationship with a woman named Rachel, who was 29, and for the longest time I truly believed she was the person I was going to spend the rest of my life with. We met through mutual friends one evening at a casual gathering, and from the very first moment something felt different. There was a spark, an effortless ease between us that I had not experienced in years. Conversations flowed without hesitation, and within hours of meeting her, I could already see a future taking shape in my head. I felt safe, I felt heard, and I felt that rare chemistry that makes you believe maybe this time, just maybe, you have finally found the right person to build a life with. When we started dating, everything fell into place quickly. We laughed easily, shared long nights talking about our hopes and dreams, and filled our days with the kind of simple joys that make life feel beautiful. The first year of our relationship was like a dream, our honeymoon stage. We went hiking on weekends, cooked together on rainy afternoons, binge-watched shows until our eyes could barely stay open, and held each other close as if the rest of the world didn't matter. I remember thinking that I had never felt so understood, so appreciated, or so loved. After a year and a half of dating, moving in together seemed like the most natural thing in the world. It wasn't forced, it wasn't rushed. It was the next step in a relationship that felt real and steady. We split bills fairly, decorated our apartment together, and created a routine that made life feel like a partnership. We even spoke casually about marriage now and then, laughing about what our wedding might look like or how many kids we might want. I was convinced that Rachel and I were building a foundation that would last forever. But there was one thing that never quite sat right with me: her ex-boyfriend, Evan. First, I tried to ignore the feeling. I told myself that everyone has a past, that holding on to jealousy was both unfair and unhealthy. But Evan wasn't just a piece of her past. He was still very much present in her life. He was at every gathering with her old friends, always sitting in the corner of our social circle, always somewhere in the background. And every time he walked into a room, I watched Rachel's entire energy shift. Started small. Little jokes they shared that I wasn't a part of. Light touches on his arm that she brushed off as harmless. The way her eyes lit up when he spoke, as if his words carried more weight than anyone else's. When I brought it up, Rachel would roll her eyes and say I was overthinking. "You're being insecure," she'd tell me. "If I wanted Evan, I'd be with him. Stop making a big deal out of nothing." Her words cut into me over time. Every concern I had was minimized. Every instinct I tried to voice was met with gaslighting. Slowly, I stopped bringing things up because I knew exactly what her response would be. "Relax. You're paranoid. You're overreacting." And so I swallowed my doubts and tried to focus on the good parts of our relationship. I convinced myself that maybe I was too sensitive, that maybe she was right and I was just imagining things. But deep down, my gut kept screaming at me that something was wrong. I cannot describe the exact feeling, but there is a difference between someone simply laughing with a friend and someone glowing because of the attention that person brings. Rachel glowed around Evan. And no matter how many times she tried to convince me that it was all in my head, I could not escape the truth my heart already knew. The breaking point came on a Saturday night when we went to one of her friend's birthday dinners at a rooftop restaurant. It was a beautiful venue, string lights hanging above, a skyline view of the city, waiters carrying drinks that cost more than they should have. I felt good about that night for the first time in a while. I even bought a necklace for Rachel earlier that week, a simple yet elegant piece I planned to surprise her with after dinner. I wanted the night to be special. For a while, things seemed fine. Everyone laughed, ordered drinks, and shared stories. I started to think maybe I had been wrong to doubt her, that maybe Rachel truly had put Evan behind her. But then he walked in. Rachel hadn't told me he would be there. And the moment she saw him, it was like a switch flipped inside of her. Her smile brightened, her voice softened, her posture leaned forward, and suddenly I no longer existed. She hung on his every word, laughed louder at his jokes than anyone else's, and brushed his arm every chance she got. I tried to remain calm, telling myself not to make a scene. Then came the group photo. Everyone gathered against the city skyline for a picture. Without hesitation, Rachel reached out, grabbed Evan's wrist, pulled him beside her, and wrapped her arm around his waist as if they were still together. I stood there smiling for the camera, but inside, my chest was burning. After the photo, I leaned over and whispered to her, "That was out of line. I'm not okay with this." I didn't shout. I didn't cause a scene. I just wanted her to understand how much it hurt. She looked at me with amusement, then back at Evan, and said in a cold, dismissive tone, "You're overreacting again. If you don't like it, maybe you shouldn't be here." That sentence was the moment everything changed. Years of being brushed off, years of my feelings being minimized, years of being told I was paranoid all collapsed into that one statement. And in that instant, I realized she was right. I shouldn't have been there. Not just at that dinner, but in the relationship altogether. I nodded, slipped my wallet out, paid for my meal, stood up, and without drama or anger, said quietly, "Enjoy your night." She looked at me like I was bluffing, like I would sit back down after a minute. She whispered harshly, "Sit down. Stop being dramatic." But I didn't. I walked out into the cool city night air, and for the first time in years, I felt a calmness wash over me. When I reached our apartment, I packed my things into 2 suitcases. Clothes, toiletries, important documents, even the necklace I never got to give her. I didn't hesitate. I didn't argue with myself. For once, I trusted my gut. I sent her a final text. "You said I shouldn't be here. Message received. I'm out." And then I blocked her number. That night, I slept on my friend Chris's couch. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer and said I could stay as long as I needed. And as I lay there staring at the ceiling, I finally understood what had been happening for years. It wasn't just about Evan. It was about respect, or rather, the complete lack of it. The next morning, Rachel's anger exploded through social media and mutual friends. Dozens of messages poured in. Screenshots showed her calling me immature, insecure, and dramatic. She told everyone I overreacted to one silly night. She spun the story to make it look like I couldn't handle her having male friends. But deep down, I knew the truth. It wasn't about one night. It was about years of her choosing to disrespect me, years of her prioritizing Evan's attention over my feelings, years of gaslighting me into thinking I was the problem. The most ironic part? Evan didn't even want her. That very same night, he left with another woman. The man she humiliated me for barely gave her a second thought. Meanwhile, I took control of my life. I went to our landlord, showed my payment records, and took over the lease entirely in my own name. Since I had been carrying the majority of the rent, the landlord sided with me. Rachel lost not only me, but also the apartment she once called home. She ended up moving in with her sister temporarily, left with nothing but the consequences of her own choices. Weeks later, she tried to reach me through her sister's phone. Her messages said things like, "I should have stood up for you. I'm sorry. Can we try again?" But her apologies were hollow. She still framed everything as one mistake. She still couldn't acknowledge the years of disrespect. And that's when I knew there was no going back. Rachel once told me I was insecure. But in the end, I was the one secure enough to walk away. Secure enough to say I deserved better. Secure enough to end the relationship quietly, with my dignity intact. And that silence, that calm walk away, was louder than any argument I could have ever made. I appreciate you staying with me till the end. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more stories.